Hi and welcome to this week's video all about growing herbs for using in your flower arrangements. I really love growing herbs for floristry. They add so much scent and texture to your different bouquets and jam jar arrangements and buttonholes. And today we're going to look at some of my favourites in the garden here at Cloudberry Flowers. I love this bit of the garden. I am surrounded by lots of herbs that I can use both in cooking for the house and also in my floristry. And this bed sits just outside my kitchen so I can nip out and snip any herbs I like when I am cooking. And I've got down here some mint, I've got feverfew, I've got some lavender here that's just starting to bloom, and just over here we've got some rosemary and sage, so all sorts of lovely herbs to use. Let's go and have a closer look at some of my favourites for growing in the garden. Just beside me here in the cutting garden I've got marjoram, and this is one of my favourite herbs for growing and using in bridal work and in my arrangements. It smells lovely, it's got these lovely pink flowers on it, and it's also got really nice long strong stiff stems, so they're ideal for working with in floristry as well. It really is a beautiful herb to work with, and it lasts a long time over the summer in the garden. It's just coming into flower now, so this is mid-July and it's just starting to get going. So for all those August and September brides, I'll be able to use this nice herb in their bouquets. And it's lovely to have a bridal bouquet that smells really nice. You can use some scented flowers in it. So here's one of my favourites, rosemary. Miss Jessop's upright is one variety that I grow, and rosemary is fantastic for using in flower arrangements. I mainly use it in buttonholes. I love to add a little bit of this. It's not prone to wilting. It's a sign of remembrance, so it's nice to use in a buttonhole if you're wanting to remember a loved one on your special day. Rosemary can be a little bit tricky in Scotland to keep going. It's very harsh in the winter time here, very cold, we get a lot of snow, frost, and sometimes the rosemary won't come through. Usually I would have any that I grow in pots, I would take them under cover for the winter, and any in the garden I would put a fleece cover over. Last year, however, I forgot to put a cover over one of my outside rosemary bushes and I lost it, and it was right next to another one that I had remembered to put a cover over, and that came through fine. So I would definitely recommend that if you are in a colder climate to get your rosemary through the winter, do protect it with some kind of fleece outside or take your pots indoors. Here's my bronze fennel in the garden, and you can just see the start of the flower heads appearing on the ferny foliage just now, and it will provide a great filler flower for me when I am using late summer autumn bouquets, so with the rudbeckia and the dahlias and the chrysanthemums. And it's got a bit of an aniseed smell to it, and that lovely ferny foliage is gorgeous in arrangements. Borage is a really great herb for using in flower arrangements. I really like its large, strong stems, and it's a great pollinator for bees as well. I love watching them in the garden on the borage. Borage is an edible flower too, and you can use it on wedding cakes, but it is prone to wilting, so you're probably best only doing that if you were going to have them pop straight on the wedding cake and use pretty quickly. It's best using borage in arrangements that are going to be in water, which is what I like to do. I really love lemon balm. It's a perennial herb that's from the same family as mint, and it grows in a partially shaded area of my garden which is quite moist. It grows to about 1 metre tall, and its leaves have a really lovely lemon scent that I really like. You can lift up and divide it in the autumn if you've got quite large clips and you want to split it. But it's very like mint, so it will need good conditioning when you cut it. So cut it early in the morning or in the evening, and then soak it really well in a bucket of cool water for several hours before using it in arrangements. So here in the garden we have got some lavender just starting to bloom, and it's a fantastic flower to use in arranging, and it's great for drying as well. I can add it to my biodegradable confetti. Lavender is really easy to grow if you're growing it in the right place that it likes. My lavender likes its best out here in the sunshine, in the gravel beds and in the rockery. I've tried it in some of my clay beds and it just doesn't like it here at all. It's just too wet conditions for it. After flowering, you can snip back the flower heads that are finished, but make sure you don't go into the old wood because you might not get any regrowth from that. You need to make sure you're just snipping off the new growth that's been there this year with the flower head on it. Mint is a great herb for using in flower arranging as long as it stays in water. It does have a slight tendency to wilt, so I wouldn't use it in buttonholes or bridal bouquets. It would be out of water for any length of time. But if it's in flower arrangements on a table, absolutely fine, and it can add some lovely scent and texture. The one behind me I've got here is spearmint, but I also grow a lot of apple mint for flower arranging. It's absolutely gorgeous. So if you're wanting to use mint in flower arranging, you want to cut it in the early morning or early evening when it's cool and give it a good drink of water, and then after a few hours it'll be ready to use in your arrangements and it shouldn't wilt then. With mint you have to be a little bit careful. It can be very invasive and it can take over a large space. So if you don't want a large area of your border taken over, then I would recommend planting it in pots to contain it. So here's my apple mint in the garden. It's got slightly furry leaves. It's a bit different from the spearmint mint that was down in the rockery border. And I really love putting this in arrangements, and it holds up really well. Once it's conditioned for a few hours in nice cool water, then it does stand up really well for several days, which is great. I let it run wild in this particular area of the garden, so although it is quite invasive, I don't mind it growing here quite wild, and I get much longer, stronger stems because of that. Feverfew is a herb that we've had a look at before that I've used for cutting, and it's had a lot of medicinal uses over the years. It is an absolutely glorious filler flower because it is just a branching habit that is just smothered in these tiny daisy-like flowers, which are really pretty. It's really easy to grow from seed as well. It germinates very quickly and you will soon have little plants that you can have out in your garden. Balm lambada is a new filler flower for me to grow this year, and it looks like it's going to be a great herb with nice purple flowers and a great filler for bouquets. Once I have got the flowers on them, we're a wee bit away from that as you can see just now, I will cut them on the coolest part of the day and I will condition them well before adding them to my arrangements, and in a few weeks' time we'll have a look back and see if they're flowering. There's so many different herbs that you can use in your flower arranging. Are you growing any at home that I didn't mention today? I'd love to hear from you if you've got some great ideas for herbs to grow for floristry. I hope you enjoyed today's video all about cutting herbs from your garden to use in your flower arrangements at home or in your floristry business. They are fantastic, they add so much scent and texture. If you're enjoying watching my YouTube channel all about growing cut flowers here in the Scottish borders, please do subscribe and share with your friends and family. I'd love to have you following along.